7 nannies quit in a week because of the Millionaire's triplets, but the Maid uncovered the secret. The night sky draped over New York City like a heavy curtain. Skyscrapers glittered with light, yet inside a 25,000-square-foot mansion on the Upper East Side, the air was thick with despair. Lucas Davenport, 35, was hailed by the press as Manhattan's real estate king. His fortune surpassed $1 billion. His face had graced the cover of Forbes, the embodiment of ambition fulfilled. But stepping into the marble-fronted mansion with perfectly trimmed gardens, Lucas was no mogul. He was simply a father on the verge of collapse. For 10 months, since his wife Isabella had died, giving birth to their 3 sons, Ethan, Noah, and Liam, the house had not known a single quiet night. From 10 in the evening until 4 in the morning, without fail, the infants screamed in unison. Their cries, raw and piercing, echoed through every corridor, filling every corner of the mansion, turning it into a golden prison. Lucas had tried everything. He had hired 7 nannies in less than a year. All of them quit. One lasted only 4 hours, another barely 2 days, and one whispered, pale-faced, that those children are possessed. Rumors spread across elite nanny agencies, and soon no professional dared to accept a Davenport contract. Not even pediatricians or sleep specialists could help. Each examination ended with the same verdict. The babies were healthy. Infants struggle with sleep. It's normal, they said. But such words meant nothing to a man who had not known true rest in nearly a year. Night after night, Lucas sat in the nursery, one child in his arms, while the other 2 wailed in their cribs. Each cry stabbed his chest with a guilt he could not shake. He remembered Isabella, her fragile smile, her faith in him when she chose to carry the pregnancy despite her weak heart. Now she was gone, and he was left with 3 souls he did not know how to soothe. Wealth could not buy a night of peace. Power could not silence a child's scream. The empire he had built only magnified the collapse within his own walls. Lucas Davenport, the man the city admired, was trapped in the shadows of endless cries. He did not know that, hidden in the quiet corners of his mansion, a pair of eyes was watching. A heart once shattered was still beating, and a hand was about to rewrite his fate. Her name was Claire Morales, 27 years old. Her job was simple: the night cleaner of the Davenport mansion. Each evening from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m., Claire moved silently through the marble hallways, dusted the frames, reset the living room after Lucas's meetings, and polished the floors until they gleamed. For other staff, the mansion was a glamorous workplace. For Claire, it was an echo chamber of grief. 2 years earlier, Claire had a son, Gabriel. He was the only light in her difficult life. But when Gabriel was 8 months old, a small cough became destiny. 3 times in 1 week, Claire carried him to the community clinic. Each visit ended the same. Just a cold. Give him paracetamol. On the 4th visit, Gabriel was gasping, fever burning, his lips tinged blue. When Claire begged the doctors to look closer, they dismissed her as an anxious mother. By the time she rushed him to a private hospital, it was too late. Double pneumonia, lungs filled with fluid, his tiny body unable to fight anymore. 3 days in the ICU passed like hell. And then the fragile heartbeat stopped, leaving Claire with a hollow nothing could fill. She sued the hospital, the doctors, chased justice with every ounce of strength. 2 years of futile battles drained her savings, cost her the small apartment she once called home, and finally, her belief that the world had room for people like her. Since then, Claire lived in silence. The night shift cleaning job in Lucas's mansion seemed her only refuge. Few saw her, few asked questions, few forced her to retell her sorrow. Yet, cruelly, this house became a constant reminder of what she had lost. Every night at precisely 10, she heard the first cry. It was Ethan, his sobs choking as if his chest were crushed. 15 minutes later, Noah joined in, his wails sharp and shrill, tearing the silence apart. And then, like a grim symphony composed by fate, Liam's voice completed the chorus, a long, mournful cry that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. Together the three cries blended into a dirge of grief Claire had endured for months. Each sound cut into her unhealed wound. She remembered Gabriel, remembered holding him close, whispering lullabies through tears, praying he would outlast the cough. But Gabriel never woke again. For Lucas, the cries of his sons were a torment. For Claire, they were a mirror reflecting her own loss. She knew better than anyone. These were not just cries of hunger or sleeplessness. They carried the weight of absence, the yearning for a mother's embrace the children had never known. That night, New York drowned under heavy rain. Inside the Davenport mansion, the antique clocks had just struck 11:15. In the nursery, Lucas sat collapsed on the floor, his wrinkled shirt drenched with sweat. In his arms was Ethan, face flushed crimson, tiny fists thrashing helplessly. In the cribs nearby, Noah and Liam screamed until their voices cracked, their cries piercing the air like knives straight into his heart. Lucas had tried everything: fresh diapers, warmed milk, lullabies, pacing the room with one child and then another. Nothing worked. The longer he tried, the louder they cried, as though wailing into a void that could never be filled. He buried his face in his hands, fingers trembling with exhaustion and despair. Tears spilled down, landing on Ethan's shoulder. "I'm sorry, Isabella." His voice broke into a whisper drowned by the cries. "I don't know how to be both father and mother. I don't know how to fill the emptiness you left behind." The children's cries rose in a haunting chorus, blending with Lucas's sobs. The grand room became a black hole, swallowing all light, leaving only despair. Downstairs, Claire froze. She heard it all, the baby's wails, and the sound of a man the world believed unshakable, now crying like a child himself. In 6 months of working here, she had never heard Lucas cry. The sound constricted her chest, echoing the sobs she herself had choked back the night Gabriel slipped away. Her hand pressed against the wall, trembling. For months she had forced distance between her grief and the Davenport tragedy. But tonight, that fragile boundary shattered. Without thinking, she climbed the stairs, her soft-soled shoes silent against the marble. At the nursery door, she paused, her heartbeat hammering. The sight seared into her memory. Lucas slumped on the floor, head bowed, while 3 infants screamed until they could barely breathe. Claire drew a deep breath. Then, as if pulled by an unseen force, she stepped inside. Lucas jerked his head up, eyes bloodshot. He wiped his tears quickly, stammering, "Sorry, I didn't think anyone would see me like this." "You don't need to apologize," Claire said softly, her voice like a breeze. "May I try?" He blinked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Anyone who could help was a miracle. Claire approached Ethan's crib. The baby's chest heaved, his face red, his cries trembling. She leaned over, laid a gentle hand upon his chest, and whispered, "Hello, little one. I know you're scared. I know you're searching for someone who isn't here." As if by magic, Ethan's wails faltered, his wet eyes blinking up at the stranger. Claire continued, leaving no space for despair. She sang, a lullaby she once sang to Gabriel. "Sleep, my angel. Mommy is here. My heart will hold you. Your dreams will be safe." The melody filled the room. Ethan fell silent, staring at her. Noah turned toward the sound, his sobs softening. Liam still whimpered, but slower now, caught in the rhythm of a love he had never known. Claire moved between the cribs. Each baby responded differently, yet all began to calm. Ethan needed her steady hand on his chest. Noah settled when she stroked his back. Liam drifted into quiet when she placed her palm gently on his forehead. Lucas stared, eyes wide in disbelief. Within 20 minutes, the nursery transformed from hell to heaven. The cries faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of sleeping breaths. Silence fell like a miracle. Lucas whispered, afraid to break it. How did you do that?" Claire wiped away the tears she hadn't realized were falling. "They're not sick," she said softly. "They're in mourning." "Mourning?" "Yes, they miss something they never truly had, the presence of a mother, her scent, her voice, her heartbeat. They were born into a void where a mother's love should have been." For the first time in 10 months, Lucas felt as if someone had turned on a light in a dark room. "How do you know this?" "Because I am mourning too," Claire admitted, her gaze fixed on the 3 sleeping babies. "I lost my son 2 years ago, Gabriel. He was only 8 months old when he passed away." Silence filled the nursery, broken only by the steady breathing of the triplets. Lucas and Claire stood there, 2 strangers, bound together by losses that were different, yet equally devastating. "They won't sleep through the night," Claire said first. "They'll probably wake in a few hours. But now we know what to do." "We?" Lucas asked, surprised. "I'm sorry, Claire realized she had instinctively included herself. "I should get back to work." "No," Lucas gently held her hand. "Stay. Help me understand what my children need." Claire hesitated. Crossing the line between being a cleaner and a caregiver was dangerous. But as she looked at the 3 babies finally resting in peace, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. "All right," she said softly. "But we'll talk more tomorrow when they wake." Lucas nodded. That night, for the first time in 10 months, he managed to sleep for nearly 4 uninterrupted hours. When he awoke, he found Claire slumped in the armchair of the nursery, fast asleep with 1 baby in her arms, while the other 2 rested quietly in their cribs. In that moment, he knew his life was about to change forever. The morning sun streamed through the nursery window as Lucas woke up on Saturday. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. He had slept from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. without interruption, something that hadn't happened in nearly a year. The peace in the house felt almost unreal. He walked down to the kitchen and found Claire making coffee, still in her night shift uniform. She had already changed Ethan's diaper, fed all 3 babies with bottles, and placed them on the living room rug to play, everything done quietly, so as not to wake their father. "Good morning," he said, still groggy. They slept through the night. They woke once around 2 a.m. Claire smiled, but went back to sleep in 15 minutes. Lucas poured himself coffee and looked at the triplets playing on the floor. Something was different. They seemed calmer, more connected. Ethan babbled happily, Noah laughed at a colorful toy, and Liam observed his surroundings with quiet curiosity. "Claire," Lucas chose his words carefully, "what you did last night, it may change my children's lives, and mine as well." "I only did what a mother would do," she said, avoiding his gaze. "But you're not just anyone, and they are not ordinary children." Lucas stepped closer. "I have a proposal." Claire tensed slightly. "I want you to officially care for the triplets. I can pay you $10,000 a month, plus health insurance, a year-end bonus, and paid vacation. You'll have a room here in the house. You won't need to clean anymore." "Mr. Lucas, I'm not a trained nanny," Claire interrupted. "I'm just a janitor." "You have something no nanny has," he said, watching the babies play quietly. "You have the heart of a mother who lost her child, and they have the hearts of children who lost their mother. That bond can't be taught by any diploma." Claire stayed silent for a long moment, her eyes following Ethan as he tried to reach for a toy. Instinctively, she bent down to help, and the babies smiled at her as if they had known each other forever. "I agree," she finally said, "but under a few conditions." "Anything?" First, I work my way. No rigid methods. Second, I want to continue studying. I plan to enroll in university for psychology to better understand the children's emotions. Third, if you ever feel it isn't working, you can let me go immediately. No notice required." Lucas extended his hand. "I accept them all." Their handshake sealed more than a professional agreement. It was the beginning of a journey that would change everything. In the days that followed, Claire developed what she called the heart method. She spent hours observing each baby, learning their unique personalities and needs. Ethan was the most sensitive. He required constant physical contact and a sense of safety. Claire added gentle massages before bedtime, sang to him alone, and held him firmly whenever he seemed anxious. Noah was energetic. He needed stimulation. Claire turned caregiving into playtime, sang lively rhythms during bath time, and created an environment full of colors and movement. Liam was the observer, more introverted. He responded best to classical music, slow movements, and calm gestures. He relaxed instantly when she placed her hand over his chest so he could feel her heartbeat. "They are not just the triplets," Claire told Lucas one night. "They are 3 individual souls who share the same loss. Each of them processes grief in their own way." Lucas was amazed, watching not only his children's sleeping habits change, but the entire atmosphere of the house. She brought plants into the nursery, changed the lighting to warmer tones, chose different music for each child, and above all, she brought something money could never buy: unconditional love and the understanding of a mother's heart. After 1 week, the results were undeniable. The triplets slept from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. By day, they were cheerful, curious, and affectionate. Lucas returned to his work routine. The household staff whispered about the miraculous transformation. "It's as if she broke a curse," the cook said to Rosa, the housekeeper. "That young woman has a special gift," Rosa nodded. The children looked at her as if she were their own mother. But not everyone in the household was pleased. Margaret Davenport, Isabella's mother, watched with growing suspicion and discomfort. She was used to controlling every aspect of family life, had once chosen Isabella as Lucas's wife, and had always considered herself the true matriarch of the Davenport family. The thought of a janitor assuming the role of a mother for her grandchildren was intolerable. "Lucas!" One afternoon she visited her grandchildren. "Don't you find it strange? No professional nanny could ever soothe them, yet this janitor with no degree manages to do it in a single night." "Strange, Mother? I call it a miracle," Lucas replied, watching Claire play with the triplets in the garden. "A miracle? Or something suspicious?" she pressed. "How do you know she isn't using unscientific means? Drugs, perhaps?" "Please, Mother, stop. Claire restored my children's peace of mind, and mine as well." But the seed of doubt had been planted. Margaret began to watch Claire with the eyes of a detective, searching for any flaw to confirm her prejudice. She had no idea that Lucas and Claire were beginning to form a bond that went far beyond work. Bound by the care of the children and by shared grief, they started to heal each other. 2 weeks later, on a rainy Saturday afternoon, Lucas found Claire in the library, leafing through a photo album he had left on the desk. In the photos, Isabella was radiant and pregnant, cradling her round belly. "I'm sorry," Claire said quickly, closing the album. "I was just—" "There's no need to apologize," Lucas said, sitting beside her on the leather chair. "It's good when these pictures are looked at with tenderness." He reopened the album at one photo. Isabella, 5 months pregnant, smiling in the garden, one hand on her belly, the other holding a white rose. "She was so beautiful," Claire whispered, "and very stubborn, too." Lucas gave a sad smile. "The doctors warned us of the risks because of her heart condition. They advised against pregnancy. But I insisted on having children. I told her we'd find the best doctors, that money would solve everything. His voice broke. I convinced Isabella everything would be fine. Claire gently laid a hand on his arm. And she agreed because she loved you. She wanted to have children with you. The price was her life, Lucas murmured. During childbirth, her heart couldn't take it. She died, leaving me with 3 children who would never know a mother's love, all because of my selfish stubbornness. Lucas, Claire said firmly, meeting his eyes, do you really believe Isabella would regret it? That she would trade their existence for her own life? He fell silent. Every mother would accept that sacrifice, Claire continued. I would have done the same for Gabriel, without hesitation. Isabella chose to give her children life, knowing the risk. That wasn't your fault. It was her love. And you? Lucas asked softly. How did you lose Gabriel? Claire drew a deep breath. For the first time, someone asked and truly wanted to hear it all. Gabriel was a healthy, joyful baby. At 8 months, he developed a cough. I took him to the clinic 3 times in 1 week. The diagnosis was always a simple virus, just a cold. She paused to wipe away tears. The 4th time, he had a high fever and trouble breathing, but the doctor told me I was just an overprotective mother imagining symptoms. Give him acetaminophen and stop hovering. Those were the exact words, Claire said. Lucas felt his chest tighten at the pain on her face. That night, Gabriel worsened. I rushed him to a private hospital, though I knew I couldn't afford it. That's when they discovered double pneumonia. His lungs were already filled with fluid. Tears streamed freely. 3 days in intensive care, 3 days watching him breathe through a tube, I begged God not to take him. On the 3rd day, his little heart gave out. Lucas instinctively held her, feeling her pain as if it were his own. Afterward, Claire whispered into his shoulder, I sued the clinic, the doctor, everyone. I spent all my savings on lawyers, experts, lawsuits for 2 years. I lost everything, money, my apartment, hope. In the end, no one was held accountable. No proven malpractice. The worst pain, she looked up at him, was not my son's death, but knowing it could have been prevented if only someone had listened, seen Gabriel as a child and not just a number. That's why you understand my children, Lucas murmured. You recognize their pain. I recognize it because it's my own, the loss of something essential. The difference is they never had what they lost. I had it for 8 whole months. They sat in silence, the rain tapping the window like a mournful melody to their confessions. Claire, Lucas finally said, you're not just caring for my children, you're healing their hearts, and mine. And you're healing me too, she replied. Caring for Ethan, Noah, and Liam has given me back a reason to live. At that moment, Ethan stirred in his crib, no longer with desperate cries, but a restless nap whimper. Claire rose, but Lucas held her hand. Thank you, he said, his eyes locking onto hers, voice thick with emotion. For what? For walking into that room the night you saw me crying, for daring to break the rules and reaching out, for bringing your own pain here to heal us. When Claire went upstairs to cradle Ethan, Lucas remained in the library with the album. For the first time since Isabella's death, looking at the photos didn't fill him only with guilt. He felt gratitude for having known such love, and hoped that perhaps he could love again. Upstairs, Claire held Ethan by the window. Look at the rain, little prince, she whispered. Sometimes nature needs to cry so that everything can bloom again. The baby stopped crying, gazing at her with curious eyes, as if he understood she was speaking of much more than the rain. No one knew that Margaret had arrived unexpectedly and was watching through the window from the garden. On her face was not the joy of a grandmother seeing her grandchildren well cared for. It was the hardened expression of someone who had decided Claire Morales was a threat that had to be removed. As days passed, Their bond deepened. Lucas found peace in Claire's presence, and Claire felt a warmth she thought gone forever. One night, Noah spiked a fever. Lucas and Claire stayed awake together. He called the doctor while she prepared warm water, sponged his tiny body, whispering lullabies. They moved in rhythm, anticipating each other's needs, as though they had always been a team. When Noah finally drifted back to sleep, Lucas sat beside Claire. Exhausted, yet his eyes shone with gratitude and something deeper. "You know," he whispered, "we feel like a real family." Claire lowered her gaze, cheeks flushed. Inside, a truth she had long denied stirred. She had begun to love this man, not for his wealth, but for the way he grieved, the way he loved his children, the way he mirrored her own loss. Silence wrapped around them. Lucas reached out, brushed his fingers over hers. She didn't pull away. And then, as if every barrier had fallen, he leaned in and kissed her gently. It was not a kiss of haste or passion, but the union of two broken hearts finding breath in each other again. In the days that followed, their bond deepened. It was not just passion, but the harmony of two souls finding healing in each other. The triplets seemed to sense the new energy. They laughed more, slept more peacefully, and spread joy throughout the entire house. But not everyone was pleased. Margaret watched it all with growing outrage. During her visits to the mansion, she saw the way Lucas looked at Claire, the way the children responded to her, even more than to their grandmother. The whole family dynamic had shifted. "Unacceptable," she muttered to her close friend Helena Marquez over lunch at the club. "A maid conquering my son and my grandchildren. She clearly has an agenda." "But the children are being well cared for," Helena tried to reason. "Well cared for or manipulated?" Margaret snapped. "No normal woman could soothe 3 children in one night without some sort of trick." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure I must uncover the truth about that woman. My grandchildren cannot grow up under the influence of someone deceiving the entire family." She left the club determined. If Lucas could not see the danger, she would take matters into her own hands. Hire a private investigator, dig into Claire's past, and find evidence. She had no idea that her suspicions were nothing more than prejudice and jealousy. Claire did indeed have a painful past. The loss of her son, failed lawsuits, financial ruin, all of which, in the hands of someone malicious like Margaret, could easily be twisted into another story. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Lucas and Claire were living the first fragile moments of a love that was slowly healing their deepest wounds. Neither of them knew that a storm was coming, one orchestrated by his mother-in-law, herself. 2 weeks later, Lucas had to travel to Chicago for a 3-day business meeting, his first time away from the triplets since Claire began caring for them. He was anxious. "Are you sure you'll be all right?" he asked for the 10th time, holding Claire close as they said goodbye. "Lucas, everything will be fine," she smiled, cradling Liam in her arms while Ethan and Noah played on the floor. "It's only 3 days. Rosa and the cook are both here. If there's any medical issue, I'll call Dr. Menezes and inform you right away. Now go, focus on your work." Lucas kissed each of the children, then kissed Claire so tenderly that her heart raced. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too," she replied, still learning how to grow comfortable saying those words aloud. From the window of her parked car outside the mansion, Margaret watched everything. Thanks to an employee at Lucas's company, she knew his travel schedule, and this was her golden opportunity. That night, while Claire bathed the children, Margaret slipped in through the back door with a spare key. In her bag was a small bottle of infant sedatives acquired through a shady doctor friend. She climbed to Claire's 3rd-floor room, opened the wardrobe, and carefully tucked the bottle into a drawer. Then she slipped in printed pages Sandra had forged. Fake internet searches like safe sedatives for babies and how to make infants sleep instantly. Everything was staged. Margaret descended, feigning surprise at her own visit. With a stiff smile, she said, "Claire, I missed the boys so much. I just had to come see them." Claire nodded politely, though unease always stirred inside her around this woman. An hour later, Margaret excused herself to the bathroom. Instead, she stormed upstairs, rummaged, and discovered the bottle. Her furious scream echoed down the staircase. "What is this?" Claire rushed up, Liam in her arms. Her face drained of color when she saw the bottle in Margaret's hand. "I've never seen that before." "Stop pretending," Margaret snapped. "Now I understand why the children sleep so well. You've been drugging them. You're poisoning my grandchildren." "No, that's not true." Claire shook her head, tears streaking her face. "I lost my son because of careless doctors. I would never harm another child." But Margaret had already taken pictures. Claire trembling, the babies wailing in distress, the bottle in her hand. Perfect evidence to send to Lucas. That night, as Claire lay in her room, her heart felt crushed to dust. She knew the storm had truly begun. When Lucas returned from Chicago, his heart brimmed with anticipation to see his children, and even a flicker of warmth at the thought of Claire. But that joy shattered the moment he opened his mother's email. The images glared back at him, Claire clutching Liam, panic on her face, Ethan and Noah sobbing, Margaret holding a bottle of medicine. Alongside, a chilling note. "Son, I know you're weak, but the truth is, she deceived you. Here is the proof." Lucas's chest tightened. He wanted not to believe, yet the photos were undeniable. As he entered the mansion, the air was suffocating. Claire sat on the living room floor, the children clinging to her, her eyes swollen from a night of tears. At the sight of him, she sprang to her feet. "Lucas, thank God you're back. I need to explain." But he cut her off, voice icy. "Explain what? That you've been lying all this time? That you've drugged my children just to keep them quiet?" Claire froze. Tears streamed as she clutched Liam to her chest. "No, you must believe me. I would never, never harm them. Someone planted this." "Margaret!" "Enough!" Lucas's shout thundered through the room. "Don't you dare blame my mother. She may be harsh, but she would never invent something like this." Ethan and Noah burst into renewed cries at his roar. Liam buried his face into Claire's chest, seeking safety. "Lucas, please," Claire whispered, her voice breaking. "You know my heart. You know how I lost Gabriel. I could never let such tragedy happen again." Lucas's gaze wavered, torn, but then he turned away, as if avoiding persuasion. "I want you out of this house. Now." The words sliced Claire's heart to pieces. She placed Liam back in his crib, her trembling hand smoothing his hair. "One day you'll know the truth, and when you do, you'll remember this moment, that you cast aside the only one who truly loved your children for who they are." Then she gathered her few belongings and left the mansion. That night, the cries returned. First Ethan, then Noah, then Liam. But this time, no lullaby calmed them. Lucas held them, tried everything, but nothing worked. They cried endlessly, searching for the arms they knew. A week later, Lucas's eyes were hollow, his body worn. New nannies came and left within hours. Finally, in desperation, he replayed the security footage from the night of the discovery. And the truth unraveled. Margaret sneaking into Claire's room, hiding the bottle, then staging her act of horror. Lucas was stunned. He watched again and again, each viewing strangling him tighter. Tears blurred his vision as he realized he had driven away the only person who could save him and his children. That night he stormed into his mother's house. Slamming the video onto the table, his voice cracked with fury. "What have you done?" Margaret trembled, yet tried to justify. "I only wanted to protect you. You were bewitched. She doesn't belong in our world." "Enough!" Lucas roared, his eyes blazing. "You have no place in my family anymore, and if you dare interfere again, you will lose your grandchildren forever." He left, his heart drowning in regret. But when he returned to the mansion, Claire was gone. She had left no trace, only a hollow void in his soul, and the relentless cries of 3 children. 3 weeks after Claire's departure, the Davenport mansion sank into darkness. The children's laughter was gone. In its place were endless cries, so heartbreaking even the longtime staff wept to hear them. Ethan, Noah, and Liam rejected every embrace but hers. No nanny lasted more than 2 days. Lucas withered, hollow cheeks, bloodshot eyes from sleepless nights. In desperation, he hired detectives to find Claire. But she had vanished from New York. Her phone disconnected, her old apartment abandoned. One morning, Rosa, the elderly housekeeper, approached Lucas timidly. "Mr. Davenport, I heard from a friend that at St. Teresa Children's Home in Brooklyn, there's a new woman caring for the children with such devotion. From the description, I think it may be Claire." Lucas nearly leapt from his chair. He grabbed his 3 sons and drove straight to the orphanage in St. Teresa Children's Home in Brooklyn. The moment he stepped into a modest room, his heart stopped. Claire sat among 6 orphans, singing softly, her gentle hands stroking their hair. Her face glowed with a light he had never seen before. Serenity, pure maternal love. The Davenport boys recognized her instantly. Ethan burst into tears, reaching for her. Noah babbled with joy. Liam smiled for the first time since she had gone. Claire froze, tears filling her eyes as she saw Lucas holding the boys. She set down the infant girl in her arms and stood. "Claire," Lucas's voice broke, "forgive me. I was wrong. I let my mother deceive me. But the cameras showed me everything. I was a fool not to trust you." Tears streamed down Claire's cheeks. She took Liam from his father's arms, pressing him to her chest. He fell quiet instantly, his breathing steadying. Ethan and Noah clung to her legs, terrified she might vanish again. "I can't live without you, neither can they," Lucas continued, his voice trembling. "Claire, I love you, not just for what you've done for the children, but for who you are. A mother, a strong woman." Claire looked at the 3 boys, then at Lucas. Her heart ached and warmed at once. "You hurt me deeply, Lucas. I'm afraid one day you'll doubt me again." Lucas dropped to his knees in the middle of the orphanage room before the staff and the children. "I promise I will never doubt you again. You are our family. You are my family." The air stilled. Ethan whispered, "Mama." The words slashed through every hesitation. Claire broke into sobs, gathering the boys into her arms. "I'm here. I'll never leave you again." Lucas wrapped them all in his arms. And in that moment, he knew his family had finally come home. From the day Claire returned, the Davenport mansion felt reborn. Laughter spilled through the marble halls where, not long ago, every echo had been a cry. Ethan babbled his first words. Noah darted about with a radiant grin, and Liam observed quietly with his deep eyes. Claire cared for each boy with patience and unconditional love, while Lucas learned to be a true father, not only through duty, but through presence. The house transformed. Green plants filled the nursery, warm light replaced the cold white glare, gentle music soothed where screams once tore. And more importantly, within Lucas and Claire's hearts, a new family was taking shape. One morning, Lucas stood at the window, watching his sons play on the rug. He wrapped his arms around Claire from behind and whispered, "I once thought my life ended the day Isabella died. But now I know she sent you to us. You can't replace her, but you saved me and our children." Claire leaned into his shoulder and softly replied, "And they saved me. They gave me a reason to live, to love again." In that moment, the past filled with loss seemed to close. Both knew the scars would remain, but they had turned into strength, guiding them forward together as a true family.